We're going to start with After Effects. The very first thing that we need to do is go ahead and set up our new project directory. So I'll create a new folder and call this Unit 01. In that folder, I'm going to create a series of different folders. I'm going to select the folder, okay? I'm going to have one called PSDs. That's for all my Photoshop documents. One called AIs. One called AEs. If I need, I can have one called FWS for fireworks, so After Effects projects. AIs is for Illustrator files, FWs, PSDs. I'm gonna have one for stock photos. Alright, if I'm using any. And I might have footage. If I have audio. And then finally renders. Alright. So today I won't use all of these, but I will potentially use all of these in later projects. This is just how I always like to set up my directories, keep everything separate. After Effects files, Illustrator files, audio, footage, fireworks files, Photoshop documents, renders, and stock photos. And these folders here pretty much are going to keep the respective files here. Alright, so let's take a look at After Effects. So when you open up After Effects, you get all these different things. I'm just going to close. You could go ahead and open a project that you've already been working on, or you could go ahead and look at some tutorials under Getting Started, or you could create a new composition. I'm going to go ahead and click Close. Compositions are like the documents in Photoshop or Illustrator files or whatever. So I could create a new comp and just call it test. Alright. HD TV, 1080, 24 frames a second, cinematic, square pixels, it's fine. By duration, down here this is frames per second. 24 of these individual frames makes 1 second of footage. We have 30 seconds that I default set this up to. You might have more if you're compositing scenes, but 30 seconds usually gets the job done. And I'll hit OK. The background color is white. That's fine. And so I have my first composition. Couple of things I'll do is set my title and action safe area up so that I know where my text should fall, and I know where everything else should go. This is my project bin. If I import anything, I can just double click here, find things that, like, okay, here's some audio, just double click and bring it in. This is my effects control. Generally this is in a tab up here, but what I did, I went to effects controls and I pulled the tab down here to make it easier. This is our layers. Our layers are or channels or whatever you want to call them. They have a lot of different things in them, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. We have our tools up here. We have our info here, audio levels here, preview where you can do RAM previews, our effects, and then our text options and our paragraph down here. I'm going to bring this up over here right beside character. Alright, so I have more frame to look at there. Okay, so just I'm going to type, well actually I'm going to make a box here. I'm going to create a new layer and go to New Shape Layer. Okay, shape layers allow you to create new vector shapes within After Effects without having to go outside the Photoshop or Illustrator or Fireworks. So you can do some design work right within After Effects. You have mask and you have creates a shape. I want a regular box. I can click this and choose a color. I can select the stroke if I want to outline around it. I don't, so I'll set that to 0. And I'm just going to make a box. Alright, simple box. I'm going to start it right here, right off screen. I'm going to show you. Okay, so right here, you can do this a couple ways. I can hit the P key on my keyboard, alright, for position to start keyframing, or I can just move this arrow down and go down here to transform and find position. Under there you have scale, which affects the size of your object, right? You have rotation, which affects how it's rotated. Opacity, if you can see it, or if you can't, you can, anchor point. That's the little center point right here. Actually, is way over here. Is where that anchor point is. So you could actually you could reset that. Or if you want to ever reset an anchor point, you can just use that tool. Make sure it's right there in the center of your project. Alright. So that you got a new anchor point. You always animate from the anchor point. So this is going to animate not from the edge, but it's going to animate from this middle. Your anchor point anchors the object in place to wherever it's at. All right. So I'm going to create a keyframe here, and then I'm going to move my playhead to maybe 2 seconds and drag this across, and you can see I automatically get another keyframe. So if I move this playhead manually back and forth, you can see how keyframes work. You set your object in a position, you create a keyframe, and then you move your playhead up, and you can either create a new keyframe, or you can go ahead and select that object. See, I'm another keyframe ahead, and so when I drag this, it'll automatically create another keyframe. If you want to get rid of it, Command Z or delete. If you want to get to that specific keyframe, just click this and it'll jump right to it. And of course, you can move this back if you're on that keyframe. Alright, so I could say right here, and then I'm going to kind of make like this curve motion. You get what's called Bezier curves, these little handles that will allow you to curve your animation. So I could make it look like a roller coaster ride if I wanted to. And see, it's animating along wherever that anchor point is at. So it goes back to my original statement. Always make sure you set your anchor point and you know where your anchor point's at, because that's where masks, text, any objects, everything has anchor points, and they all animate from that. So that's pretty simple. If you wanted to create text, you could. Your text tools. You have other tools, like if I was to drag, and I'll show you really quickly. Say if I wanted to distort this, I could drag this on top of either the layer. I could just find an effect and preset, or I can drag it across there. And you're probably, and when you drag an effect, you get the effects control panel over here, and you really don't see that. So if we could delete that, just select it. Let's find something. Maybe liquefy. Maybe we could liquefy it. Alright. So we got to create. Alright, we'll set it here and create some keyframes right here. And then we can move it over here and use this to start making it blob out a little bit. Alright. And you see you got under effects, you see you got the liquefy keyframes, you got it's on the distortion mesh. You can move this up though if you wanted to. See how that does. And then we can, so now it's like this traveling blob thing, and we can come down here to the last keyframe, and distort it even more. Make it really crazy there. And just a little bit on screen so I can see what I'm doing. I'll get my distortion mesh here. You got all these tools for the liquefy. You could swirl it. Do all kinds of things. So you got a lot of options, but now I could drag this part in down here because I only want to do a RAM preview of what's in here. RAM preview writes your effects directly to your RAM. So I'm going to click this. I'm going to click loop it because I want to see it. Well, this is default loop, and then that right by there is going to create a RAM preview, You'll see it's starting to get kind of blobby there towards the end. It's kind of cool. Alright, so that's pretty much, and of course, you know, you would go ahead and save, and you could save this AEs, and we'll call this AE overview. Make sure I save it in the right. Alright, and that's it. That's all you have to do. So happy editing.